It was supposed to be a historic comeback, but within minutes of hitting the stage at Live Aid, this band's performance started to unravel. Now, was it the vocals, the drumming, or something far deeper? Or was it all down to Phil Collins? Find out more, and that's coming next. In July 1985, Live Aid took the world by storm as one of the largest, most ambitious charity events in living history. It had been organised to raise money for famine relief in Ethiopia, and the concert brought together the biggest names in music across two venues, London's Wembley Stadium and Philadelphia's JFK Stadium. Among the many highly anticipated performances was the reunion of Led Zeppelin. The group had disbanded some 5 years earlier, following the death of their drummer John Bonham, and this was to be the first time the surviving members, Robert Plant, Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones, would have performed together since that breakup. Now, with such high expectations, what should have been a momentous event ended in a performance so infamous that even the band themselves have distanced from it. In this video, I'll be looking into what went wrong that day, from the setlist to technical difficulties, from Robert Plant's vocal challenges, the decision to use two drummers, and the question of whether Phil Collins should shoulder the blame for the performance's failure. Now, as you saw from the thumbnail, at this point, Collins has been declared guilty and is behind bars for his crimes. Let's see if he stays there. The Led Zeppelin set at Live Aid was notably short, especially for a band whose concerts were legendary for their length and improvisational freedom. The band chose to perform 3 songs: Rock and Roll, Whole Lotta Love, and Stairway to Heaven. So although their set lasted roughly 20 minutes, by comparison, a typical Zeppelin concert in the 1970s could have stretched on for 7 hours, with extended solos, improvisation, and a heavy, intense energy throughout. However, given the format of Live Aid, each artist was given a limited amount of time on stage. Unfortunately, instead of making those 20 minutes a triumph, their performance quickly unravelled. While the setlist featured 3 of their most famous songs, the delivery was marred by a series of technical mishaps and uneven performances. Rock and Roll, which opened the set, immediately felt disjointed, with timing issues between the drummers and shaky coordination among the rest of the band members. Whole Lotta Love followed, but lacked the raw driving force that had once made it a cornerstone of their live shows. And by the time they played Stairway to Heaven, the band's most iconic song, it was clear that something wasn't right. The brief set, though packed with Zeppelin's classics, simply couldn't capture the essence of what the band had once been, especially under the challenging circumstances that they faced on that day. As Collins was one of the drummers used on the set, he must certainly take his share of blame in this aspect. Now, there was another area of concern, and this was the state of Robert Plant's vocals. His performance was a far cry from the vocal dynamicism he had displayed with Zeppelin's prime. Throughout the set, he visibly struggled to hit the high notes that were once his trademark, and his voice lacked the power and control fans had come to expect. Now, it has been reported that there were several factors that contributed to this decline in his vocal delivery, both physical and emotional. Firstly, Plant's voice had simply changed over time. In the 5 years since Zeppelin's breakup, he had not been consistently performing their material, and really had shifted his musical focus to his solo work and also touring with the Honey Drippers, a band with a much softer, more laid-back sound. Now, this shift in style meant that he was really out of practice with the heavy, demanding nature of Zeppelin's music. As Plant himself admitted in a 2004 interview with Mojo, "I was hoarse and out of practice, and it showed. I just wasn't up to it." His voice had aged, and without regular use of the powerful rock vocals that Zeppelin required, he struggled to gain that form. Secondly, Plant was emotionally disconnected from the reunion. The death of John Bonham in 1980 had left a deep scar on him, and revisiting Zeppelin's material brought up difficult memories. Now, he had been vocal about his reluctance to rehash the past, and his half-heartedness was visible. In interviews following Live Aid, Robert reflected on his lack of enthusiasm for the performance, saying that he was never really fully on board with the idea of reuniting. Now, this emotional distance manifested itself in a lack of energy and focus on stage, contributing to the underwhelming delivery. Music critics were quick to point out Plant's vocal struggles. Rolling Stone wrote that Plant's voice sounded strange and tired, lacking the clarity and power that once made him one of rock's greatest frontmen. This was not the Robert Plant of the 70s, and the contrast between his previous performances and what was heard at Live Aid was glaring. Certainly, Collins could not be held responsible for the Plant vocals or his attitude. One of the most peculiar aspects of Led Zeppelin's Live Aid set was the presence of not one but two drummers. In an attempt to fill the void left by John Bonham, the band recruited two top-tier drummers. Phil Collins, the drummer for Genesis, who was also enjoying a massive solo career at the time, and Tony Thompson, best known for his work with Chic and The Power Station. Now, the decision to use two drummers appeared to stem from a desire to replicate Bonham's powerful, complex drumming style, which was so integral to Zeppelin's sound. However, this ultimately backfired, as neither drummer had the time to rehearse adequately with the band or indeed each other. In fact, Collins, who had already performed in London for the Live Aid event there earlier in the day, flew to Philadelphia with barely any preparation. Rehearsals with Zeppelin were minimal, leading to confusion on stage. Phil Collins has since spoken openly about the disorganisation leading up to the show. In a 2014 interview with Q magazine, Collins said, "I think we needed a couple more days of rehearsal to get it right. There were just too many cooks in the kitchen." The lack of preparation was evident from that very first song, where the time in between Collins and Thompson was off, creating a muddled and disjointed rhythm. Instead of complementing each other, the two drummers seemed to be competing for space in the music, and the result was a chaotic, uncoordinated performance. Jimmy Page, too, struggled to adjust to the unusual dynamic, as his guitar work often seemed to clash with the rhythm being laid down. This confusion was particularly noticeable in Rock and Roll and A Whole Lot of Love, where the tight, driving rhythm that Zeppelin were known for felt completely absent. It's clear that Collins had a significant part in this area. So was the most successful solo artist of the time responsible for what has been referred to as a debacle of a set? Now, since Live Aid, many have laid blame for the disastrous performance at the feet of Phil Collins. While he himself has expressed regret over the event, the reality is far more complicated, and the failure cannot simply be pinned entirely on him. Phil has often mentioned that he felt out of place during the performance. He had previously played with Plant on his solo projects, but he was not intimately familiar with Led Zeppelin's material. Worse yet, he had almost no rehearsal time with the band. The only rehearsal they managed was a brief run-through the night before the event, which was far from enough to gel with the rest of the group. Collins admitted in an interview with Rolling Stone, "I remember just thinking, I don't know what I'm doing here. I felt like I was part of a train wreck in slow motion." He also later said that he considered walking off the stage mid-performance, but chose to stay, knowing that would have created an even bigger spectacle had he walked off. The chaotic atmosphere on stage was compounded by Jimmy Page's erratic guitar playing. Page, who had faced personal challenges in the years leading up to Live Aid, was not in top form. missing notes and playing out of sync with the rest of the band. Collins recalled in interviews that it felt like Page was playing a different song at times, further adding to the confusion. As much as Collins was at a loss for direction, Page's inability to lead effectively contributed heavily to the performance's lack of cohesion. Now, while Collins' drumming was far from perfect, he was not the sole reason for the failure of the set. That combination of unpreparedness, a lack of chemistry, Plant's vocal issues, and technical missteps all played a part in what was ultimately a very disappointing show. So whilst it does appear easy to blame Phil for this performance, it is apparent that there were many more factors at play. Led Zeppelin's Live Aid performance stands as one of rock's most infamous misfires. While the band was given a golden opportunity to reconnect with their massive fan base and honour the memory of John Bonham, a mixture of logistical, technical and personal issues made this moment a disaster. The truth is, the band simply weren't ready, both musically and emotionally, for this reunion. Plant's vocals, the awkward dual drummer setup, and the lack of rehearsal created a perfect storm that ensured the performance fell flat. Reflecting on the event, the band has rarely spoken positively about their Live Aid experience. And it's no wonder. Led Zeppelin's legacy remained intact, but the Live Aid set serves as a reminder to all that even rock gods are fallible. Given the circumstances, it's difficult to imagine how anything could have gone right without more time, more preparation, and a stronger commitment from the band. Instead, what could have been a triumphant reunion became a cautionary tale about the dangers of rushing into the spotlight unprepared, and as such, we U-turn on the original decision and let Collins out of jail. I would love your thoughts on the Led Zeppelin performance at Live Aid. Was it really that bad? Was Collins responsible? Leave me some comments down below. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, share with anyone who might be interested, and hit that subscribe button, as it really helps me to get my content out to others who like this type of subject matter. Thank you to my subscribers for your continued support, and if you are new to the channel, thank you for watching this one. I really appreciate that. Now, for those of you who like Led Zeppelin, I have a playlist of reviews and reactions I have done to date, and on screen now is a particular favourite of mine that I know you will enjoy.